Hello and welcome to this episode of Blockchain Bylines. My name is Nicholas Cary, co-founder and vice chairman of blockchain.com. Today, we are excited to have Fahmi Syed, president of the Midnight Foundation, joining us to discuss the exciting developments around the Midnight network. So I'm really excited to hear more about Midnight, and I think you've already introduced a couple of the characters from this space, including some of the early Ethereum founders of the Polkadot network. But you mentioned Charles. Charles
Yes.
Hodgkinson is the founder of Cardano. Tell us a little bit about Cardano's past history, where it comes from, and then its relationship with Midnight, because I think Charles is a larger-than-life personality. Love to hear your side of it.
Yeah, so look, I'm very fortunate to work at Polkadot with Gavin. And then when Charles came and another Ethereum co-founder, one of the first 8 at Ethereum who kind of came up with programmability in blockchains, and he explained his vision. So Charles Hodgkinson, for those who don't know, has been a blockchain student advocate since the very beginning, whether it's Bitcoin and then Ethereum. And then he branched into launching Input-Output, the engineering firm behind Cardano.
Yep.
And Cardano was the next generation of blockchains, the third generation, that brought scalability, governance, interoperability to the blockchain. And Charles was sitting there a number of years ago going, why have we not seen real world use cases or real world adoption of blockchain technology? The thing that excited me about going to work for Parity and Polkadot and delving into this technology, why aren't the large corporates thinking about using that? Why haven't we seen much beyond simple fads, the fads, whether they are NFTs or meme coins or others? Why aren't people getting paid in stable coins? Why isn't your medical data on a blockchain and used to decentralize how you share information? And Charles's vision very much around that led to a research project a number of years ago, 5-6 years ago, with a number of the universities who work with Input-Output. That research innovation was a paper called Kachina, which then led to some innovation within Input-Output and the engineers. And the first evolution of Midnight was an EVM chain. And then they realized you can't add privacy as a secondary element. You can't add something once your footprint and your fingerprints are everywhere.
Right.
You're already exposed.
Yeah, it has to be foundational.
So yeah, they went back to the beginning, and Midnight started again. And as a kind of go-to-market program, it began in earnest about 2 years ago, and I've been here 18 months. Excited by it, and 3 months ago I was honored that they asked me to head up the foundation.
So the Midnight Network emphasizes something called rational privacy, and I'd like to hear you talk a little bit more about that, but then especially how it differs from traditional blockchain transparency models. So some listeners may be familiar with Bitcoin. Some may be familiar with a proof-of-stake system like Ethereum. And I think you sort of talk about, Cardano and Midnight is sort of like a third-generation blockchain. It's learning from the earlier ones, and it's applying, kind of a different security and privacy model. So maybe explain the first two and then, what's different about Cardano and Midnight.
Well, rational privacy, I get asked that a lot, as you can imagine. I talk about it a lot. Look, rational privacy is something that happens in your physical world and your digital world today. And you don't even know about it because it's just automatic to how you live your life. So just now on this podcast, you've announced that you originated from Colorado.
Right. That's a pretty private piece of
That's
information.
That's a private piece of information that probably most people don't know. And yet you were comfortable enough to disclose that not only to me, but all the audience and people listening. That's rational privacy. But you haven't told them your social security number.
No.
Or where you live in the UK now. Because that's a bit more important to you in terms of that information could lead to harm, could lead to people taking advantage of you.
Right.
And in the digital world, rational privacy comes from how you share credit card details for payments with the big payment providers, the big social media platforms. We just have become sort of accustomed to that.
Right.
So, but they are now controllers of your data. They monetize your data. They own pretty much everything you do. Like, I'm sure you've been at home and suddenly you're talking to friends or in a social environment and they're talking about something they purchased.
Yeah, and then it shows up in my feed 24 hours later and I'm just getting inundated with stuff I didn't
everybody
want.
denies that your phone's listening to you and all these things. In the blockchain space, Bitcoin was an innovation. The innovation of decentralizing ownership, allowing peer-to-peer transfer without intermediation.
Yep.
So suddenly, post the financial crisis, you didn't have to have an IOU from the bank to access your money.
Right.
Suddenly you can own something, and it was a transfer of value, an asset of value that you can move around. And the world has taken to that, and we now see big institutions adopting it. Right. And then Ethereum brought programmability, as a second generation. The third generation, Cardano, Solana, and others, Polkadot, they brought scalability. But again, they didn't solve the major issue with Bitcoin and blockchain, transparency. Transparency was there to solve for double spend, the validation. But it doesn't have to be that way. And zero knowledge technology, zero knowledge proof, which existed around the same time, can now be applied to blockchains to help with that privacy, that confidentiality. The first generation privacy, and there's two forms, there's a permissionless and private. Private comes in it's just centralized.
Yeah.
It's, JP Morgan can access, somebody has to hand their information data over to JP Morgan. Do you see Goldman Sachs doing that with their clients? Don't think so. Because then JP Morgan can track their behavior or at least understand what's going on. Then you have the permissionless one, so the Moneros and Zcash, which again introduce zero knowledge to a blockchain for the first time. But they are transfers, store of value, which are transfers of value. And for various reasons, regulators or large corporates become uncomfortable with that because of the disclosure elements, not knowing if you're dealing with a bad actor on the other side. And then the evolution of that has come in other chains, which have tried to tackle that problem. But in ZK, as I explained, when Midnight tried to become a ZK EVM sort of product, you can't add privacy as a secondary thought. You have to start shielded and then selectively disclose.
Right. It's like having clothing.
Exactly.
You don't show up in your birthday suit first.
Exactly. You don't start, I could be here naked and then start getting dressed. It's too late. Everybody's seen this middle-aged man on TV. It's too late. So what Midnight we're trying to do is saying, well, we want to introduce shielded privacy-enabling capabilities. We don't want to be a private chain. We want our tokenomics and our technology to enable that. So in Midnight, we've split the tokenomics into two parts, the ownership and governance, and then this emission of a shielded utility resource called Dust.
Okay.
And Dust, as a shielded resource, enables people to commit private transactions through their applications, through their services, but the smart contract language that sits on top then enables selective disclosures. So we believe that brings a compliant way to introduce privacy and privacy-enabling applications into a blockchain.
Roughly 24 billion Knight tokens are being distributed across 8 blockchains. Talk to us a little bit about the vision behind this huge initiative, the ambition, and this multi-phase airdrop, and maybe even define some of these terms. And talk to us about the rollout.
Yeah, look, we're very excited by the Glacier Drop. I'm actually very proud of what we're doing here. So one of the things, again, as we looked at technology, we want to innovate on the technology, we want to innovate on the tokenomics to make sure there's more utility, but we want to also innovate how airdrops work. We have seen recently a lot of the projects that are funded by VCs.
Right.
And we look, VCs have a great purpose and role in this industry, but one of the things VCs want is to get a return on their investment. So projects are taken to market quickly, and often they have access to tokens at a price that the community does not get to have. So builders, the community come a little bit after maybe. Not primary, but maybe close to secondary after that. So within the Glacier airdrop, what we want to do is put the community and everybody first. So we will allow all 100% of the token, 24 billion Knight tokens, to be claimed by wallet holders, addresses from 8 ecosystems. Cardano, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, BNB Chain, XRP, Ripple, and the BATS network, the Brave browser network. Cool. And we want them to come, and they come to claim that for free. They get first dibs, first chance to come and claim that. Nothing comes to the foundation, nothing goes to any insiders. So the most successful drop, 100% being claimed. I don't have a job. The foundation doesn't exist. Now, we know the reality. There are people who lost their keys, people who are inactive, people who will not be paying attention, people who are tribalists and want to just stick to their own chains. But we're encouraging people to come and claim because we believe in the technology and the vision of what we're trying to do. Once they have 60 days to come and claim, there's no first come, first serve. They have a predetermined number of Knight allocated to them based on their address in their different ecosystems, based on the size of what they own in those ecosystems. Nobody can come and claim it. It's theirs.
Okay, so let's talk about the mechanics of that. How does my mom, my sister, someone else claim one of these?
Okay, so there's a few ways. There will be an official website, a portal where people can come. If they put in their public address, they can understand whether they're eligible.
Okay.
And by public address, their wallet address, whether they're eligible. It will tell them how much their eligibility and how much they're eligible for. And then all we ask is that they present some proof that they are the owner of that eligible address. Mm-hmm. And proof comes by signing a private message. We're not asking for private keys. We're not asking for any money, any tokens up front. Just a private message that confirms that they are the owner.
Cool.
And that will lock up the token. But also, we've been working with large institutional custodians, large wallets. Also, now we're speaking to central exchanges, or the token generating entity is, just to make sure that people holding through those channels can also come.
One of the things you guys are sort of innovating on is this thawing mechanism, which unlocks kind of randomized token amounts over 360 days. So after this 60-day period, sounds like there's some other things happening.
The first 60 days for the original 8 ecosystems come and claim. But then we realized that what we're doing, we want the whole world to embrace and other ecosystems to embrace. We want this to be a cooperative launch. We don't believe in tribalism. We believe that all chains should work together for the betterment of the industry, for betterment of our users, our clients. So after the first 60 days, the initial claim phase, there's going to be a scavenger phase, a scavenger hunt, where anybody from any ecosystem or from Web 2 can come and exercise a proof of mining concept where they will solve puzzles. So the unclaimed wallets and addresses will go into this 30-day window.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So
stuff that doesn't get gobbled up right away.
So let's assume you come and claim your original wallets and you like the idea of Midnight. You can come and claim Satoshi's wallet. Let's assume Satoshi's not going to come and claim.
So someone's going to get,
So his wallet and his unclaimed Night will be available. So if somebody solves the larger the wallet, the harder the puzzle. So someone comes and solves that, they're eligible to come and claim Satoshi's eligible Night tokens.
Cool.
However, they don't get everything. They get a certain percentage. It's really not theirs. And that action then creates a distribution into the other constituents, the foundation, the reserve,
okay, so it triggers
and treasury.
An event.
So it triggers an event. And then once all that happens, so the whole 90 days, so the 60 and 30, we get to a place where you get to a redemption phase over 12 months where we're going to give you a random number between 1 and 90. You will get quarterly equal installments unlocked of your claim over that 12 months. If you get number 1, you'll be day 1, day 91, day 181, day 271. If you got number 90, you're day 90,
like a lottery.
180. Yeah. So it's a lottery. But what it does is randomize the distribution. So it avoids any kind of shocks around people selling or receiving and selling in large troughs, large amounts, and then seeing sort of a price impact on that or volatility around that.
If you had to summarize this to someone that was very new to crypto, let's circle back to like how Night and Dust work together.
Yeah.
And you described how they create a sustainable ecosystem for private transactions. But just to reiterate once more, because I think this is such an important point and it's such an interesting and innovative system, let's hear it one last time.
Yeah. So the tokenomics around blockchain, we think there's a slight flaw because the very asset that gives you ownership and governance is the very asset you cannibalize to pay for your transactions.
Right.
So today, if you own an iPhone, you don't pay for that in Apple shares.
Right.
You pay for fiat. So fiat gives you utility to go and acquire something, and sometimes you acquire it for usage. Other times you use fiat to go and invest.
Yeah.
So what we've done with Midnight is taken that concept of separating ownership with utility. So Night is your ownership governance token. It gives you access and ownership to this new technology. But what it will do is perpetually emit a resource called Dust. And Dust is your access to the market.
Got it.
So it's a bit like, someone just described it to me as buffet pricing, Chinese buffet. You go there, pay once, and you got unlimited access to the food. So this gives you unlimited access perpetually to the Midnight Network.
Got it. And I think a lot of people don't maybe realize, like when you use Bitcoin on chain, you are paying for those transactions in Bitcoin. So if you've been doing this for a decade, there are the accumulated value of the cost of just transacting can actually grow and be fairly significant.
Yeah, and then also what happens to the network? What happens when Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana or Cardano are $1 million a token?
Right.
Because that's, everybody thinks price go up. Let's go to the moon. However, the transaction costs of the network become very
grow
high.
as well. Yeah. So your white paper states, Midnight aims to break free from this paradigm to create a truly interoperable layer with cross-chain incentives becoming the connective tissue across all kinds of networks. And you spoke very collaboratively, which I think is a really nice sort of aim and ambition. There's a lot of tribalism in the digital currency space. And I think that's been problematic in some ways, but also it's also helped the systems become more resilient. Talk to us a little bit about what this cross-chain world sort of looks like and what it means to you guys.
Yeah, so interoperability today requires somebody from Ethereum to go and and they want to use Solana superpowers or Cardano superpowers to go and own Solana token or Cardano tokens. Now, they might not really care about the value of Solana or the value of Cardano. What they really care about is that technology they want to access.
Right.
It's a bit like you leaving Colorado to come and live in the UK. You have to figure out how much sterling UK pounds you need. And do you have too much? Do you have too less? And when you go back to the US, do you have too much? And did that go up in value, down in value? You just wanted to live here and just be able to pay for your bills and for your food. Okay. So what Midnight does with its tokenomic model is to enable people to acquire transaction as a service, to stack their technology. So if they like Solana's high speed and what it offers, and they like Midnight's privacy-enabled capabilities, then a Solana dApp user should be able to come and acquire accessibility to our network without having to own our network. And that's what Dusk gives them, is privacy-enabling transaction as a service through this separate utility. And we encourage all developers to either look at it natively or as a hybrid, because in the Web 2 world, people build technology stacks. They use a bit of AWS Cloud and Google Cloud and Microsoft Azure. They don't tend to stick to one. And what we want to encourage is collaboration across the networks, where Midnight could be potentially a glue or a utility that other networks want to come and use.
Cool. All right, so we pulled a bunch of quotes of yours from the past. So I think I'll read these, and you can either affirm or maybe you want to expand on any of these. Okay. But I think there's some really great points in here, and I thought give you a chance to sort of reiterate them. So adoption on permissionless, transparent change hasn't really seen real world adoption. Do you think that's still true?
I still think that's true because let's talk about adoption today. Which large corporation is redistributing or repatriating capital and revenue using a stablecoin?
Not yet.
None. Who gets paid in a stablecoin? Very few people. Why? Because ultimately, if suddenly your company starts to pay you in a stablecoin, then you can go back to the origin wallet and see who else is getting paid. And if you're a small company of 5 people, 10 people, you're like, oh, I'm not paid the most. There's difficulties around that. So what there is investment adoption of blockchains and crypto tokens, but the actual technology hasn't seen large, widespread adoption.
Yep. So you boldly stated, why are we so grounded to the fact that transparency is the primary requirement of a blockchain? It's not. Yeah. So isn't transparency the bedrock of trust in blockchain, which is sort of, I think, the first few years of discussion about blockchains themselves? Mm-hmm. And how do you convince skeptics that privacy won't enable gray or dark market activities?
Look, I can't. Is the short answer.
Right.
Look, with anything in life, any technology in life, any service in life, any opportunity, there will be good actors and bad actors. What we are trying to encourage at Midnight is a compliant way, showing that there is a way to have truth whilst you're protected in terms of shielded, showing a way that you can disclose information in a way that, again, is protected and on a need-to-know basis, and encouraging people to kind of build more compliant tooling. Now, equally, that doesn't mean we are saying to every builder in Web3, they're bad actors. You could have a regulated DEX on Midnight and an unregulated or open DEX on Midnight. Both can coexist side by side. What privacy gives you, by default, is disclosure by choice in Midnight. And choice is an important, right? Exactly. Yeah. And choice then is up to you what you want to go and do. And what you want to participate in. And that gives builders choice as well. And choice leads to opportunity, and opportunity leads to growth. And then we get back to adoption.
Got it. All right, so paint us the most optimistic kind of future you have for Midnight and the Foundation's airdrop and success over the next 6 to 12 months. What does that look like?
Yeah, look, first of all, we're focused on the Glacier Drop. For us, claim success is getting it to as wide an audience as possible.
Right.
That's Cardano and beyond. I don't want people to think we're just a Cardano chain or a Cardano project. We want to see, we've chosen these 8 ecosystems because we see the best of traits in them.
Yep.
We see a large ecosystem in them where they could interact and we can enhance them. So success is broad claim, broad adoption across those ecosystems and beyond. And then we get to mainnet by the end of the year. And what I would like to see is use cases. Developers really not just copying what's come before, but thinking beyond what they've done. Thinking beyond, okay, so we've seen great adoption of how DEXs, DeFi, lending, borrowing activity has made things accessible to the general public, which has normally been the remit of the wealthy few. So how do you bring that into midnight, but with an element of protection around privacy, around disclosures, which may bring bigger use cases and more liquidity and more assets, which ultimately always helps the small person, because liquidity, the ability to enter and exit something easily and quickly and efficiently is good for everyone.
Totally agree. All right, well, I want to thank you, Fahmi, for joining us today. And as a reminder to our audience, if you're holding any of the tokens you see visible on your screen in your blockchain.com wallet, you'll be eligible for the night drop. Till next time, I'm Nick Cary, and on behalf of the entire blockchain.com team, thank you for tuning in.